Hello, my name is Richard Haight, and I'm the author of Taking the Psychedelic Leap, Ayahuasca, Mushrooms, and Other Visionary Plants Along the Spiritual Path. Today I'd like to read an introduction to my new book, and I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Introduction. I'm a purist, my teacher said. I don't believe that psychedelics are necessary or even useful on the path of awakening. I feel that it is up to me to awaken on my own. He echoed my personally held belief exactly. We were discussing my upcoming trip to the Amazon, where I was intent upon partaking in an ayahuasca ceremony with an Ayahuasca shaman. Although I had had many visions throughout my life without aid of psychedelics, and I was an avid meditator, actively dedicated to my path of awakening, I felt undeniably pulled to the ayahuasca experience. I had experienced such a pull many times in my life, and I have learned to trust it deeply. With each one that I followed, there was a great, if not always pleasant, lesson that invariably proved to be a milestone in my life. My purist ideology and the pull to take ayahuasca were diametrically opposed inner forces, so I took the matter to my mentor in hopes of gaining some clarity on the issue. As my mentor and I were of the same ideology, he said that he was ill-suited to advise me on the decision, but he assured me that he trusted whatever I chose. Somehow that helped me, for I was still at a somewhat insecure place in my awakening process. My mentor, sensing my insecurity, told me plainly, "Trust yourself, for in every interaction I've had with you, it was clear that you have powerful inner guidance." Hearing that, I decided my course, and a few months later I was lying at the forest edge of an Achuar village in the midst of a harrowing vision. After that trip, I spent the better part of a decade exploring what I had received from my Amazon experience before I felt drawn to explore psychedelics further. By that time, I was an instructor of meditation, autonomic therapy, and Japanese traditional martial arts, as well as a best-selling author on spirituality. My meditation students and I were discussing the ayahuasca experience when a student asked my opinion about psilocybin mushrooms and whether I thought that they could be used as a tool for awakening. As I had only had one psychedelic experience up to that point in my life, and as mushrooms are distinct from ayahuasca, I had no opinion to offer. I've had numerous visions throughout my life, and as a result of them, I have discovered many powerful tools of awakening: unconditioned meditation, autonomic releasing, and specialized internal martial arts training. Surely there were many other effective tools, I thought. Could psilocybin mushrooms prove themselves to be another spoke on the wheel of awakening, leading to the hub, oneness? To my surprise, during my drive home, while considering my student's question, I felt a strong pull to try the mushroom. This pull led me to an exploration of psychedelics that began with psilocybin mushrooms and ended with the pound-for-pound most powerful of naturally occurring psychedelics known to the modern world, Salvia divinorum, the diviner's sage. Psychedelics are both hyped and denigrated by differing factions within the awakening community. The more traditionally inclined tend to look negatively upon psychedelics, whereas the more open-minded individuals tend to hail psychedelics. The chasm between these two groups is quite vast. I was caught between these two worlds by my purist ideology and the opposing pull to explore these substances. Heading into this experiment, I hoped that my experiences could somehow begin to bridge the gap between these two groups. My policy is to follow the pull wherever it leads me, come what may. To do otherwise would mar integrity and halt my awakening process. My subsequent experiment with psychedelics involved 12 trips over a 2-year period. In this work, I intend to walk you through my approach to psychedelics and to detail my key journeys and what I learned from them. I also share with you the most recent scientific information available on these substances and their potential medical uses, legal statuses, safety profiles, and methods for usage. Although I thoroughly researched the available literature on these substances before taking them myself, I ultimately followed my inner guidance regarding method, which resulted in an approach that is somewhat distinct from what is typically recommended. I share it with you in case you too might find it useful. This book is not intended to advocate the use of hallucinogens. Instead, it is meant solely as a means of sharing my experiences, the pleasant and the unpleasant, and what I learned from them, and how those experiences aided me on my path of awakening. In the appendix, I include specific studies and need-to-know information on substances that I used. Before I go further, I need to state that the decision to write this book did not come without much consideration. Although my inner feeling strongly indicated that this book needed to be written, I was concerned, no, highly concerned, that the information presented here could inspire some reckless individuals who neglect common safety protocols to harm themselves. While the plants that I discuss in this work all have extremely safe profiles, they need to be respected and treated with care, for not every form of death is physical. After much consideration, I realized that people who read and study before taking psychedelics are also likely to be more respectful of psychedelics and therefore more likely to explore them safely. Please prove me right. My hope is that this work be of some aid to you in your life and on your path of awakening, regardless of whether you incorporate psychedelics into your path. It is not my intent to persuade the reader one way or the other regarding psychedelics, but instead to offer a fresh perspective that will help you to have penetrating clarity in all that you do. My readers are doubtlessly more experienced with psychedelics than I am, so I'm not writing this work as an expert on hallucinogens. Honestly, human beings know so little about these substances that it might be arrogant for anyone to claim expertise on this topic. Instead, what I'm offering is an approach to life that applies extremely well to psychedelics. Surely there are many readers who have yet to try psychedelics, but who feel drawn to do so at some point along their paths. It is my hope that the approach, information, and resources provided here will help those individuals to have greater understanding of and respect for psychedelics before jumping in. To those individuals who are convinced that psychedelics have no place on the path of awakening, I know exactly how you feel, for I too held that view for the majority of my own process. Even if you find yourself opposed to the use of psychedelics, it is my hope that you find my approach to life useful and stimulating. In my case, were it not for an unexpected, deep inner pull that led me to the Amazon, I might never have questioned my ideology. Even with a strong inner knowing that I should take ayahuasca, I did not enter into the world of psychedelics lightly, and in my opinion, neither should anyone else. Whatever the individual chooses on the path of awakening is ultimately the responsibility of the individual, or at least it is wise to behave as if that were the case. In this work, I often describe a pulling feeling. The pull is a powerful sign of inner guidance that should not be confused with a common compulsion or urge. It is of a different nature entirely. The more that one follows this pull when it arises, the more powerful its guidance becomes in your life. In a way, following the pull requires a leap of faith, for often it will lead you to face your fears and do things that you have been avoiding, despite knowing deep down that those things are right. Sometimes, as is often the case with me, the pull may force you to directly confront your ideologies and beliefs. Eventually, it can become so powerful that your body will begin to move entirely on its own through complex activities, so long as you allow it. In my estimation, the single most powerful thing people could do on their paths of awakening is to awaken the pull, for that is your guidance system on your path. From this place of inner guidance, I entered my psychedelic journeys. If the reader has never experienced such a pull, this book might be easily misunderstood. As there is no way to give the pulling experience to the reader, I must accept that limitation and work around it as best as possible. Just know that the rational mind is but one of the most recently developed areas of the brain. Many other powerful structures in the brain can also serve to guide our lives. I merely ask that you suspend your disbelief while reading, so that you may receive as purely as possible. Here's to your path of awakening, whatever it may entail.